Hi, welcome back to Frankly Wines in the Time of Corona. It is Tuesday, May 5th. Happy Cinco de Mayo, everyone. I hope everyone got their tequila on today and had at least a margarita or four. Delicious. But we're not here to talk about margaritas. It's Tuesday, so it's time for Italian wine tour. So today we're gonna head east of Piedmont into Lombardia. Now Lombardia is a region that all of us know because we all know about Milano, the big capital city, and sadly, very in time with the fact that it's COVID, we have kind of the hot spot of where Italy was really hit with the COVID area. But that being said, all the more reason to celebrate the products they make and get them out there, and you can help support this very devastated region. So back to Lombardia in my very high-tech printed out map here. I did want to point out some of the areas that we're going to be talking about today. We're going to kick it off with Franciacorta, which is this area, which is right at the base of Lago di Iseo. Then we're also going to be talking about another wine region at the base of Lake Garda, which is going to be Lugana. And then finally, we're going to finish this off all the way up north in the Valtellina, one of my favorite places, also of Nebbiolo grape origin, the wines. You'll notice though, there is actually one other place. Lombardia is really known, the fact that there's Milan, and it's known for a lot of industry more so than wine. It's known as the richest region in all of Italy due to all the banks in Milan. It also has a lot of fashion production. You had a lot of textile production, and you also have a lot of quarries, especially as you get up north. So you have a lot of that Italian marble, a lot of that stone. That's all coming from this region. So historically, they've not exactly been, highlighted for their wines, but they make excellent wines, and we're going to cover a couple of them today. One region I wish we had time to cover as well is this little blue guy down here, which is called the Oltrepò Pavese. It literally means for across the Po River from Pavia. And they're known for making some really great sparkling wines as well as still whites. However, we're gonna get going in kind of like the capital of sparkling wine, shall we say, in all of Italy, which would be Franciacorta. So Franciacorta, again, in the province of Brescia. We're just west of Milan, truthfully, it's only about 45 minutes an hour west drive, pretty close to Brescia. Now, Franciacorta is Italian champagne, is the easiest way to say it, even though I'm sure the French wouldn't like that. Until this is kind of a recent phenomenon. This really only started in the 70s and 80s. Until the 60s, Franciacorta mainly grew Piedmont grapes. They grew Barbera, they grew Nebbiolo, but it was kind of lost. And so in the 60s, there started to be an increase in interest in sparkling wine production. And so by the 70s and 80s, they had actually established rules. It became the first DOCG for sparkling wine. And today we now know it for classic method sparklers made from Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, or as they would say Pinot Nero, and Pinot Bianco, aka Pinot Blanc. They do not use Pinot Meunier. That's the one champagne grape they swap out for the Pinot Bianco. But Franciacorta is very interesting because, as I said, it's at the bottom of Lago di Iseo, and a lot of the lakes in Lombardia, which includes the famous Lake Como, are glacier lakes that were carved from, glaciers coming down from the mountains and carving them out. Lago di Iseo is the same way, so it's very mountainous around most sides of the lake, and then the very bottom of the lake, it kind of spills out into these vineyards, and that's where wines like Barone Prezzini's, Animante, Franciacorta is made. Now this is non-vintage, and technically this is their kind of entry-level wine. It is made from I couldn't believe there's 25 vineyard sites going into this wine. But Silvano Brescianini, who runs this estate, is currently the president of the Franciacorta Consorzio, and he, I've visited the winery several times. He has the utmost care for the land and for biodiversity in the vineyard. Their vineyards were converted organic in the 90s, and he's really led the area in trying to convert everyone to farming organic. So I feel very comfortable knowing that he's basically at the head of the realm. So again, they do very little sulfur. Everything is done organic. This wine is going to be, again, their biggest production, but it's a blend of all three grapes. You have Chardonnay, you have Pinot Noir, and you have Pinot Bianco. The base wine goes in, it's fermented in stainless steel without any malolactic fermentation happening. And then it spends like, they say 18 to 30 months, but I think it's usually more like 24-ish is what they do on the lees, making it in a classic method sparkler. Now, when we first popped the bottle, there was like this little subtle oxidative, like kind of honeyed note to it, but it's really mellowed out, and now we've all kind of decided that it smells and tastes a bit like one of those really unsweet almond cookies. Like it's got this, still has this kind of like almond, a little bit of baking dough, like it's got this little hint of doughiness, a little bit of like lemon zest, and I was like, you know what, it reminds me of those little almond cookies that you have that really aren't sweet, but they still like carry all that beautiful kind of like almond personality across. What's more, Franciacorta is usually less expensive than a true champagne, so it's a really excellent way to get a good value in something made like champagne. And honestly, I try to give these guys a lot of credit because I know that they're making the wines correctly, and if anything, I feel like are always going uphill against people who want to have champagne. But if you see a Franciacorta on the shelf, they're generally of good quality, they're a good price, and hey, especially if you see any Barone Pizzini, you know that what's in the bottle is definitely made with a lot of care. Yummy, Barone Pizza. All right, so I'm gonna go back to my high-tech map, and I'm gonna drag you over. So if we were really following my tour of Italy, we would now head north and hit Lake Como and drive the coast and then head over to Lombardia. But before we dive into those reds, I thought first we would bring it to the other lake. So Lake Garda is right, it splits the region with the Veneto. So Verona is truthfully just right about over here. And this purple area under here is the DOC for Lugana. Now, Care Frati, consistently through my entire career, I don't think I've ever had a bad bottle. Anytime I've had one of these wines, whether it was in Lombardia or at any point in my buying career, it's always delicious, and they're so well priced. Now, what was interesting to me today is that I've always said that Lugana comes from Trebbiano di Lugana, because that's how I was taught it. Now they, though, when I looked on their text sheet, were technically calling this Trebbiano. So I don't know if they just decided to do a little mashup of the Trebbiano di Lugana to Trebbiana, but anyways, this is basically a stainless steel white. Care Frati, which means House of the Friar, has actually been owned by the same family since 1939, and they are the largest producer in Lugana. They have 200 hectares, which is like a little over 400 acres. They make 10% of all Lugana wine that's traded. Now the I Frati is going to be their entry level. They do a few that have some oak on them, and they also do sparklers, and they also do rosé. But I've always been a huge fan of the Lugana I Frati, just because honestly it's so, for a stainless steel white, there is so much going on in the glass. First off, it is like, it's got this stinging, flinty minerality to it. Lake Garda is also a glacier lake, just like Lake Como and just like Lago di Iseo. So again, if you're at the southern part, you're gonna get a lot of mineral deposits from all those glaciers moving everything. But outside of that, I mean, literally they just do 6 months in stainless steel, and then they do that time on the lees. So it gives it maybe a little bit more depth, but for all of the aromatics that are just leaping out on this, this is historically, even at Frankly, been always a lot of people's go-to like Italian white. They usually are like, what's the white in the big weird bottle? That's Lugana. So you could drink this on its own, or it would be awesome with some cheeses, or I don't know. I mean, it really drives that fleshy pear and flint. So it feels almost a little Burgundian, dare I say. And yeah, it's just such an interesting wine. Really lovely. Another great white to look for from the area. But now I'm taking you to where my real heart lies, Valtellina. So you can't see it on my map, but technically off the top of Lake Como, this river comes off, the Otter River, and that river creates a giant valley, and the entire northern part of that valley throughout this whole stretch, truthfully it starts a little closer, but generally speaking, so I drove this west coast and then up and over and was driving along, and it isn't too long before you start seeing all these insane vineyards, because they're literally much like when you go to Carema or the Alto Adige or Valdosta that we just talked about. You see these terrace vineyards. There's no machines going into these. Most people there's steps amongst the terraces. Most people will pick grapes into these backpack devices on their back because they literally can't even carry the cassette, the little grape bins. To get an idea of what this area looks like, I did use one of this great book. So you can just see these immaculate, crazy terrace vineyards. The grape that they grow here is Nebbiolo, which they locally call Chiavenesca. Now, from my little map, you can see they're all the way up north. This is Switzerland, and these are the Swiss Alps. So this is just about as close as you get to growing Nebbiolo straight up in the Alps, even more so than Carema. And as such, the wines have always had this very, very delicate finesse to them. So today we're going to taste one and talk about another, and I will talk, if I have enough time, about one last category, but we're going to start with a really historic estate, which is Aropepe. Now, Aropepe is short for Arturo, let me make sure I say it all correctly. Aropepe is short for Arturo Pellizzati Perego, which is the father of the current of the children who run it. Isabella, who is awesome, as well as her brothers Emanuele and Guido, run the estate together. They all started careers elsewhere, and just their call to come home eventually all brought them back to the Valtellina, especially after their father passed away. Now, originally this was known as the Pellizzati Winery. However, due to just I visited Isabella 2 years ago, and it's just such an incredible story of how over the years they went from being almost like a co-op. They had their own vineyards, and then they also bought grapes from a lot of local producers who, much like in Valdosta and such, just have little plots of land. So they bought grapes. They were the biggest producer in the area. After some bad financial luck, he ended up selling the winery in 1973, and he sold it as a whole. So he couldn't, even though he came back and wanted to restart in the 80s, he could not use the Pellizzati, name any longer. So he was forced to create a winery that was short for it, hence Aropepe. And eventually they even bought back the original winery. So now they're in the original historic winery. This is their 2015 Rosso di Valtellina. While they have some amazing, amazing crus, this is going to be from a selection of their lower sites. At the same time, you can see the pale color, but they do a 100-day maceration on this. So it's delicate, but it packs a punch. It has so much structure at its core. And even on the nose, I mean, it's still very, very delicate, very rosy, very true to Nebbiolo. And you think it's gonna be this really, really light wine, but it really brings it. The other wine that I absolutely love from the area is my good friend, Marco Fai, making wines under Sandro Fai, which is his father. Marco is very much, he's a revolutionary in the area. A lot of the vineyards are planted north-south so that they get the morning sun and then the afternoon sun, but Marco flipped their vineyards because he feels that it's more important that they get the full day of sun as the sun passes across the valley. The wine from him that I didn't pop today, but we've sold it forever and we absolutely love it, is the 2014 Carteria, which is a single plot that is it's a single vineyard within the Valgella larger cru. So again, I mean, I can't really say enough for these guys. I just them, and you should love them too. Thanks.